General Hospital will reveal interesting facts of the week from May 5th to May 9th, 2025. First, amid the quietly mounting tensions in Port Charles, Jocelyn enters a challenging new phase with a firm resolve not to let anything stand in her way. After her initial attempt to secure the research assistant position failed, she quickly realized that this wasn't merely a career opportunity, it was a crucial key to a behind-the-scenes WSB mission she was desperately trying to protect. With no other option but to succeed at all costs, she immediately began crafting a bold new strategy, relying on her creativity and her natural risk-taking instincts to get closer to her goal. However, in doing so, she found herself pitted directly against Emma, who wasn't just another competitor but someone deeply connected to key figures in both the medical and intelligence communities. Emma, with her calm yet sharp demeanor, proved to be a formidable rival. She didn't appear to play by traditional rules and carried her own secret motivation for pursuing the coveted research role. The hidden reasons behind Emma's ambition made the situation increasingly unpredictable, pushing Jocelyn to both compete and investigate, determined not to be blindsided. Their quiet showdown quickly escalated beyond academics, turning into a full-fledged battle of strategy, psychology, and allegiance to the larger, shadowy forces behind them. Meanwhile, Professor Dalton remained outwardly cold and enigmatic, seemingly observing everything from a distance, silently waiting to see which of the two young women would reveal her true strength, and how far she'd go to earn his trust. Elsewhere, Drew was no longer able to contain the fury that had been simmering beneath the surface. The emotional wreckage from recent betrayals and disappointments had pushed him to a dangerous edge, stripping away his former restraint. What ignited his rage was a shocking revelation about a long-buried piece of his past, one that involved people he once trusted implicitly. Now fueled by a desire for vengeance, Drew began executing the early stages of a carefully calculated plan. Each move he made carried irreversible consequences. And the revenge he sought was no longer just personal, it threatened to unravel a power network that had operated in the shadows of Port Charles for years. Meanwhile, Mac, long known for his calm judgment and moral compass, began to notice troubling irregularities in the cases that had recently crossed his desk. Quietly, he launched an unofficial investigation, hoping to uncover the hidden threads tying these seemingly unrelated incidents together. As he delved deeper into a web of vague evidence, deliberate lies, and twisted truths, a gnawing suspicion began to grow: someone close to him was hiding something terrible. And bringing that truth to light would mean hurting people he cared about, possibly beyond repair. The events unfolding during the week of May 5th to 9th will weave a complex tapestry of schemes, betrayals, and intensifying personal conflicts. As Jocelyn pushes forward with her plan to win over Professor Dalton, she remains unaware that her actions are triggering a chain of events even she might not be able to stop. Her confidence and strength will be tested like never before as Emma refuses to yield, and Drew grows ever more dangerous with his seething resentment. Meanwhile, the pieces of Mac's investigation begin to fall into place, and once the truth is finally revealed, none of them may be able to turn back. Second, following the building storm already brewing in Port Charles, a new wave of emotional upheaval may be on the horizon as Rocco finds himself standing on the brink of a revelation that could reshape not only his own sense of family but also deeply affect the lives of those closest to him. When Rocco stumbles across Lulu's old laptop, forgotten and tucked away but still containing fragments of her meticulous digital journals and confidential notes, he unknowingly steps into a chamber of secrets that was never meant to be opened. As the files load and he schemes through entries written with raw emotion and veiled urgency, Rocco is slowly pulled into a story far more personal than he expected, uncovering hidden truths about his older brother, truths that hint at a complicated past involving adoption, secrecy, and unspoken sacrifices. In the quiet solitude of that moment, the world seems to stop for Rocco as the pieces begin to fall into place. What was once a vague family legend or hushed conversation suddenly becomes crystal clear: his so-called brother may not share the same bloodline after all. The shocking detail isn't just the adoption, but the identity of the child's biological parents, one of whom may be his own father, Dante, and the other, unexpectedly, Brooke Lynn. This changes everything. In an instant, Rocco's view of his family fractures, and the weight of this knowledge settles heavily on his young shoulders. The question then becomes, what does he do with it? Rocco faces a dilemma unlike any he's ever known. Revealing the truth would mean shattering the lives of people he loves. Remaining silent would mean carrying a burden that could fester and grow, impacting how he sees his father, Brooke Lynn, and even himself. To complicate matters, Danny might be with him when the discovery occurs. If Danny is present during this accidental revelation, the ripple effects could widen fast. Especially given Danny's own instincts and his close ties to both families involved. The boys, caught in a moral crossroads, may find themselves divided, one wanting to tell, the other urging caution. As Rocco grapples with the enormity of what he's learned, his relationship with Dante subtly begins to change. There are long pauses in their conversations, sudden moments of withdrawn silence. And a heaviness in Rocco's eyes that Dante can't quite place. Sensing that something is troubling his son, Dante may begin his own investigation, one that leads him directly back to the past he tried so hard to compartmentalize. Brooke Lynn, too, might begin to feel unease as interactions with Rocco shift from casual to oddly charged, making her wonder if the secret she thought was safe is on the verge of exploding. Meanwhile, should Danny inadvertently share part of what he knows with the wrong person, or perhaps even mention the laptop to someone like Sam or Michael, the secret could slip out of Rocco's control entirely. What began as an innocent act of curiosity could quickly ignite a firestorm of consequences, especially once questions about custody, deception, and the ethics of keeping a child's parentage hidden come to the surface. In the days ahead, Rocco may be forced to grow up far quicker than anyone intended. His journey from discovery to decision will define not only his own path forward but may also dictate the future of several intertwined families. The secret he now holds in his heart has the power to undo years of fragile peace, or perhaps finally bring long overdue clarity to a legacy built on half-truths and hidden pain. And once the truth comes out, there will be no turning back. Third, while chaos quietly coils beneath the surface of Port Charles, Drew begins to spiral into a dark place of fury and vengeance following a scheme that nearly destroyed both his reputation and personal relationships. After narrowly convincing Willow that he had been framed, Drew is no longer focused on survival or damage control, he is consumed by the need to retaliate. The betrayal he suffered, wrapped in deceit and timed with cruel precision, pushed him past the limits of patience and forgiveness. With rage now burning behind his calm exterior, Drew begins to meticulously trace back every move, every conversation, and every interaction leading up to the night that shattered his public image. The time for mercy is over. Now, it's time to strike back. In Drew's mind, suspicion begins to crystallize, and one name rises with chilling clarity: Nina. Her history of manipulation, her complicated ties to both Sunny and Willow, and her unpredictable allegiances all converge into a profile that Drew can no longer ignore. Though he lacks concrete proof, his instincts, sharpened by years of psychological warfare and corporate intrigue, tell him that Nina didn't just have the motive. She had the opportunity and the network to orchestrate such a calculated takedown. Her presence, too perfectly removed from the chaos, makes her all the more dangerous in Drew's eyes. But Nina might not have acted alone. Drew begins to suspect that Portia may have quietly assisted in pulling the strings. Particularly given her growing closeness with Nina and her increasing involvement in matters far beyond the hospital walls. Portia's recent behaviors have taken on an oddly strategic tone. And Drew, once dismissive of her potential for duplicity, starts to consider whether she had a role in laying the trap. Perhaps she didn't plant the poison, but she may have helped arrange the setting for his downfall. Still, another name refuses to leave Drew's thoughts: Tracy. The timing of her presence, her cryptic advice, And her push for an alliance against Sunny all feel far too coincidental. Drew replays the encounter again and again in his mind, the moment he met Tracy, the drink he consumed shortly after. And the unexpected appearance of Jacinda, who swept into his life like a carefully placed pawn. He starts to question whether Tracy's call for unity was merely a smokescreen for deeper machinations. And if Jacinda was introduced into his orbit to serve a more sinister purpose. The possibility that the entire sequence of events was a setup begins to gnaw at him. And with it comes a terrifying realization: if Tracy is involved, the betrayal runs deeper than he ever imagined, perhaps even within the Quartermaine walls themselves. As Drew sets his plans in motion, he isn't interested in simply exposing the perpetrators. He wants to dismantle them, one by one, until nothing remains of their schemes or reputations. His vengeance will not be loud or reckless, it will be precise, merciless, and public. And it begins with information. He quietly reaches out to Mac, who has recently begun an investigation into a local crime that may intersect with Drew's own experience. Drew suggests, without revealing the full extent of his knowledge, that his incident with drug tampering should be folded into the broader investigation. He paints himself not just as a victim but as a valuable source. Someone willing to cooperate if it means uncovering a conspiracy with wider implications. Mac, skeptical but intrigued, starts pulling at the thread. He begins comparing Drew's timeline with recent reports, hospital records, surveillance footage, insider testimony, and what he uncovers leaves him disturbed. The dots begin to connect in ways that implicate several high-profile residents of Port Charles, and while none of the evidence is damning yet, it's clear that someone carefully orchestrated a fall from grace that was meant to look like Drew's own self-destruction. The question is no longer whether Drew was framed, it's who had the power and audacity to carry it out so flawlessly. Behind the scenes, Drew works in silence. He avoids rash moves and emotional outbursts, opting instead for quiet, methodical escalation. He collects favors, revisits conversations, tracks inconsistencies, and confronts key individuals with seemingly innocent inquiries, each one designed to poke holes in their stories and push them closer to panic. He knows that fear loosens tongues and reveals alliances, and he intends to exploit every crack he can find. Nina may have started this war, but she won't be the only one to fall. Even as he builds his case, Drew finds himself becoming increasingly isolated. The pursuit of revenge costs him dearly, it distances him from friends, clouds his judgment, and reawakens shadows he thought he'd left behind in Afghanistan and beyond. But he cannot stop. The injustice haunts him, the betrayal replays like a poison in his bloodstream. And until the scales are balanced, Drew Cain will not rest. And when the truth finally comes out, it will not be whispered. It will be shouted from the rooftops of Port Charles, and it will burn. Finally, as the next wave of episodes unfolds in Port Charles, the focus shifts dramatically to the devastating aftermath of Kai's highly anticipated surgery, a moment that had been painted with optimism but is now tainted with cruel irony. Kai, with his bold predictions and unwavering belief in a successful outcome, had practically declared his recovery a foregone conclusion. His confidence bordered on arrogance. A dangerous mindset in the world of unpredictable medical outcomes, especially in a place as volatile as General Hospital. Those familiar with the cruel mechanics of soap justice know all too well. When a character is too hopeful, the narrative often delivers a merciless twist. Despite the best efforts of the surgical team, the results are not what Kai expected. In fact, they are worse. The looming threat of paralysis, previously only mentioned as a remote possibility, now becomes a grim reality. Not only is Kai unable to move his lower body, but there are signs of nerve damage that might complicate his condition even further. The vibrant and fiercely independent man who once spoke with such determination now finds himself trapped in a body that refuses to obey. And with that realization comes the unbearable weight of despair. Trina remains a pillar by Kai's side, refusing to abandon him even as he spirals into pain, both physical and emotional. Her loyalty is unwavering, but the strain of watching him suffer becomes nearly unbearable. She tries to stay strong, offering hope and gentle reassurance, but inside, she is fractured. Trina has always been resilient, but this test challenges her in a new and deeply personal way. The man she loves lies broken, and no amount of words can repair the damage. Each passing day in the hospital room feels like a lifetime, and the sound of machines beeping replaces the laughter and dreams they once shared. Her quiet tears, shed only when Kai sleeps, are testimony to the depth of her heartbreak. As Kai begins to comprehend the permanence of his new condition, the emotional fallout intensifies. He lashes out in frustration, not at Trina, but at the universe, at his own body, and at the hope that once burned so brightly. The sense of betrayal from his own flesh is something he cannot articulate, but it simmers beneath every word. Every glance, every silence. His recovery, now more psychological than physical, will be a mountain climb he never anticipated, and may not yet be ready to face. While Kai's world shatters in one part of Port Charles, a different threat looms over Sunny's circle of influence. Carly, ever perceptive and fiercely protective of those she loves, grows increasingly anxious about a threat she cannot name but feels closing in. Her instincts are rarely wrong, and this time, her unease draws Jack Brennan closer into her orbit. Brennan, suave and capable, has made himself indispensable as an ally, promising to track down whoever is responsible for the latest breach of Sunny's security. But Carly, haunted by past betrayals, still keeps her guard up, and she's not alone in that. Jason, back in action and as watchful as ever, remains skeptical of Brennan's intentions. Though Brennan has insisted repeatedly that he's only there to help, Jason knows that in a town like this, words mean little without history to back them up. He keeps a careful eye on Brennan, watching his movements, his calls, his tone. Something doesn't sit right. Jason senses that Brennan may have a stake in this threat that he's not revealing, and that if Brennan is playing both sides, the damage could be catastrophic. As Brennan deepens his involvement in the investigation, leading leads and collecting intel, he continues to charm his way through Port Charles with the air of someone in control. But Jason isn't fooled. He quietly shadows the investigation, cross-referencing Brennan's claims and uncovering a few odd inconsistencies that set off alarm bells. Whether Brennan is simply overstepping or orchestrating something far more complex remains to be seen. But Jason isn't taking any chances. He knows too well what happens when the wrong person gets too close to Sunny's world. The stage is now set for two parallel battles, one of personal survival and emotional endurance for Kai, and another of trust, deception, and danger as Carly and Jason attempt to navigate Brennan's murky loyalties. As Kai faces the painful truth of a life forever changed, and Trina walks the razor's edge between hope and heartbreak, the other side of town braces for a storm of its own. And in the tangled corridors of General Hospital, no secret stays buried forever, and no alliance is ever truly safe.